week 5, day 8. We gotta remember, we had some snow days. This is Monday the 11th. Okay, routing and switching. Course items and questions. I asked them a packet tracer. That's going okay. I remind students we want them to take the quiz in every unit. Okay. We reviewed routing a little bit, static routes, dynamic routes. We covered switching fundamentals today. We're going to do the unit review evaluations. We're going to do that on Wednesday. We'll do this in groups. We'll start the skills-based on Wednesday assessment, and then they'll have to finish it during the week. And then also there is a second unit test that they'll have to take either in the testing center or from me during the week. Got a little catching up to do. So, frames, data link layer, physical layer, switching. We talked a lot about switching today. Most of the work was right on the switches. I reviewed to the students how they might have to, what they might have to use to get logged into the devices. We talked about the core layer, the distribution layer, where we do a lot of traffic filtering, no traffic filtering up here. Then we talked about access, our devices. What ways do we get access? Well, typically we get access through multi-layer, through switches or access points. Could be other ways, but those are the main two ways. Through the air or with a wire. Then we talked about some switching things. We talked about a number of switching things. We talked about I don't have a slide here, but we talked about, I can add that here at the end. Talked about store and forward, cut through, a few other simple terms. So, talked a little bit about VLANs, and I talked about, here we have VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 99. The only way these VLANs can talk to each other, we talked a little bit about a trunk, carries VLAN IDs. So let's take a look at some work looking at this. We use this diagram, and we did a number of things. We talked about the switches. We looked at multi-layered switches, and so forth. Students that we gave them, they looked at a router and looked at the routing tables, tried to determine from them routing tables where things was routed to what. We looked at the DHCP and some of the switches. They weren't in all of them. And then we looked at the VLANs in the switches. So, here's an example. It's a multi-layered switch. So VLAN 10, this one is 28, so that's this one right here. And so we have two different VLANs down here. Let's look at it this way. So we have a VLAN here, so let's say that's VLAN 10. Then we have some on this VLAN, let's say that's VLAN 20. So the default gateway, in fact, let me do this. The default gateway for VLAN 10 these switches are going to point at this virtual interface inside the multi-layered switch. And the 20s, VLAN 20, right here, they're going to point at this. Inside these are all inside this multi-layered switch. So if you had a packet that needed to go, let's just look at this example, needed to go from a PC here to a PC over here, it would go up into the multi-layer switch and come back out. And the connection between them is a trunk, so it'll go up, it'll be marked VLAN 10, go up, get routed, come back, and now it's marked on VLAN 20. This is the routing table. You can see three different VLANs, in which this one's VLAN 20. I just happen to use 20 in the address to match here. VLAN 10, VLAN 10, and then VLAN 99. Now, this is going back to, we reviewed some routing things with a diagram. For example, in order to get to this network, this one specifically, you would go out just pointing at this address and this interface. So we reviewed some of the routes and routing protocols, and we looked to see if there's any questions on how it would work. Default route. And in there we also looked at a couple static routes. And that was it. A lot of it was, just work looking at these and then questions and answers. So, I should mention, you should, actually this week, we want to finish up Chapter 4, Switching, which is mostly just working through the materials. There are no labs and there are no packet tracers, so it's just work out of the curriculum. And we talked about the main points today. We are going to review chapters 1 through 3 on Wednesday, plus see if there's any other questions on switching on Wednesday. We're going to do a review together in class in groups. So you should have all the quizzes and tests and everything done for chapters 1 through 3. And then we'll set up the skills-based assessment on Wednesday. Everybody will have a router connected to a main router. I think I have it set up something like this. Anyway, so you will configure RIP here and here. Then we also might have some situations where you might have to do some static routing. Okay, so you should be able to do any static routing in RIP version 2. And then we have an exam over the first 3 units that no notes, primarily from the quiz work for the first 3 chapters. You'll need to take this with no notes with me sometime during the rest of the week, or we can put it in the Student Learning Center. That's it.